Jiro here for Umbra Games with the review of Cuphead. While originally slated as a Microsoft exclusive, in 2019 it was also ported to Nintendo Switch. There hasn't yet been a true physical copy at the time of this review, aside from a code in the box. I normally try to prioritize my physicals in my backlog, but for Cuphead, an exception had to be made. I dabbled in this a little bit solo when Hercules first gave this to me as a Christmas present, but had friends who wanted to try and play co-op, so I waited. The first friend arrangement ended up giving up after a few sessions and about halfway through, and Velcro wanted the next shot at it, but since we live halfway across the country from each other, I had to wait for time slots we were physically in the same room because it's only couch co-op. That's why it's taken me years to finally put this one in the books. Cuphead is Studio MDHR's first game, and wow, they made a bunch of noise for a first-timer. It's amazing looking at some of the presentation and behind-the-scenes footage of how they pulled off this animation style, drawing it just like they did back in the 40s and 50s. The characters were drawn and there's animation sequences on paper, but I do believe they said they were colored digitally because the minute difference they were seeing wasn't really apparent nor worth the effort. Cuphead and his buddy Mugman make a bet with the devil and lose. So locked into his service, they must hunt down those that have broken their contracts with the devil and claim their souls. So playing solo, now as either protagonist, or as mentioned, playing simultaneously with a friend, you navigate island maps looking for stages to confront a variety of bosses. Aside from its art, one major thing Cuphead is known for is its difficulty. I remember when I discovered it wasn't a true full-on run-and-gun game type like Contra where you'd face the bosses at the end of stages, I was a little disappointed. But then after taking the first couple bosses, was pretty glad you weren't retreading the stage over and over just to take another shot at them. The majority of the game's content is this one-on-one fighting style, but there are a few run-and-gun stages peppered throughout, more on those in a minute. Now you start with a standard pea shooter, and eventually can equip a second weapon, and you can easily toggle between the two. While left stick moves, you can also hold the bumper, and continue to use that left stick to aim without moving. You also have a dash to help you quickly maneuver when needed. One concept that definitely took a little adjusting to, and still didn't feel quite perfect even after logging hours onto the game, is the parry. At a specific time in your jump, if you hit the jump button again, your character will do a little somersault. If you touch a pink projectile or pink enemy while this spin is going on, you'll do a parry, rendering the shot or the enemy harmless, and giving your character another bounce. As a pretty hardcore platformer player, I really would have expected to be able to pick up on this way more easily than I did. But the parry double jump button timing felt like the window for it was a little smaller than I would expect. As you make contact with the shots you fire, you'll see a meter in the lower left corner made of cards. As these cards rise up, you can expend their power individually to make bigger shots, and if you fill the meter up entirely, you can trigger an ultimate move. You can eventually obtain a few different ultimates to choose from as well. You do have to be careful when using these though, because there aren't any invincibility frames, or at least extremely minimal ones after use, so always plan for a good spot. One of the keys to success, of course, in Cuphead is learning the boss's moves and patterns. Most have a pretty specific telegraph of what's coming, and hopefully you can adapt quickly. You do have a set number of lives, and everything is a one-hit kill on those lives. If you fail while fighting a boss, it will show you a meter with flags on the game over screen, each one denoting a boss phase and how close or far you were from victory. I can't say enough about the amazing boss designs and phases though. Each one is so unique, and most are pretty challenging, but all of them avoid any sort of feeling of repetition, in my humble opinion. Now, I've heard some people say it feels like playing the game in multiplayer could be cheating or making the difficulty too easy, but honestly, the presence of a second player often made the game difficult in 3 ways, with only one advantage. First disadvantage is when you're in single player, you see a boss telegraphing a shot. You know it's coming for you, and you can jump away. In 2-player, it could be coming toward your friend, and you won't know it until the last minute, when your reaction to it coming to you could put you in the path of the attack on your friend, making bosses that fire multiple shots at a time especially difficult. Secondly, your attack power seems to be at least halved when another player is present. If one player dies completely, losing all their lives, then your solo attack power is restored. I'll hit the advantage next, in that while playing together, if a character dies completely, their angel will float up from the place of their death, and if you can time a parry on their ghost, you can save them, making some extremely difficult to survive situations endless. But that brings me to the third disadvantage. I don't know how many lives were lost trying to time a parry on a ghost and not die yourself, especially because I mentioned how the parry feels a bit finicky in the timing, at times. It can be difficult to tell where collisions are going to happen. This works on both the good collisions of your shots and the bad collisions with the bosses. Sometimes parts of bosses don't register damage, your shots will go through them, and sometimes you'll get super close to their sprite, also only to take no damage. It does seem to be consistent in these areas, so learning them can help, but it can provide some frustration on your first few attempts. After finishing a boss, you're rated on specific criteria: how long the battle took, how many lives you maintained, and did you get enough parries in there. Good luck with all that. Sometimes I was just happy to have been successful and was ready to move on. So now onto the run and gun stages. Each stage has 5 coins that can be gathered up as you journey through some pretty intense platforming. And again, upon death, it'll show you how close you were to the end of the level. As mentioned, my initial disappointment in all stages not having this also quickly went away due to some of the, let's just say, less than polished sections here. Falling through platforms that are moving, random enemy spawns in weird places, and still sticking to your 3 lives before having to start over. Coins you gain from these stages can be used at equipment vendors to open up the different weapons and dash alterations, which can be switched out from anywhere on the map screen. The final thing I want to hit on is the game's musical score, which, since of course we have vintage animation style, we also had to have live big band record the soundtrack. It fits so well with the game's art, and if nothing else can be said about Cuphead, it's that it truly is a masterpiece of visual and sound design. So yeah, of course, the animation and music are top-notch, the boss design, there's unlockable weapons, and trade-off to play local co-op, which makes Cuphead stand out. There's a bit of a barrier to entry for rookie players or ones not used to the game, as it can be very difficult, but practice can make, well, success. The parry mechanic never felt quite right to me. The run and gun stages left a bit to be desired in its platforming and enemy AI, but all that can be overshined by the well-designed boss battles. Rated as a 2D action platformer, Cuphead shoots for an 85 out of 100 on my 0 to 100 scale, where 50 is average. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching.